You've got 24 hours to tear that fence down, or I will. That's what he said, standing 3 feet into my property line, puffing his chest out like a mall cop trying to impress a prank channel. His badge caught the sunlight just enough to seem official, until you got close enough to realize it was plastic. I didn't flinch. I leaned against the very fence he hated so much, took a slow sip of sweet tea, and said, "You sure you want to threaten a federal land agent, buddy?" The way his eyes widened, you'd think I had morphed into a T-Rex. But let me rewind. How we got here is about as ridiculous as it is satisfying. 3 weeks before that showdown, I moved into a supposedly quiet rural neighborhood on the edge of town. Big lots, wide roads, no fast food wrappers in sight. After 12 years with the Bureau of Land Management, I thought I'd seen every land dispute under the sun. Cow grazing wars, water rights squabbles, even a guy trying to declare eminent domain over a taco truck. But none of that prepared me for what was waiting in my own front yard. I bought the property fair and square. 2 acres of freedom, bordered by open land on one side and a cul-de-sac of cookie-cutter homes on the other. No HOA, no weird covenants, just peace of mind. The fence I installed? Nothing fancy. A wooden perimeter to keep my dog moose from chasing deer or UPS trucks. I checked county records, surveyed the lines myself, made sure I didn't cross onto anyone else's property. So imagine my surprise when, 48 hours after the final nail was hammered in, a stranger showed up at my door. Khakis, aviators, a laminated card in my face. "You violated Section 7A of the Neighborhood Structural Code. This fence needs to come down." "Section what now?" He crossed his arms. "The HOA regulations. You didn't submit a fence plan." I looked around, then back at him. "What HOA?" That was my first encounter with Keith, the self-appointed enforcer of a homeowners association that, according to the county registrar, didn't exist. I checked later. No incorporation documents, no board. Keith was as legitimate as a monopoly millionaire. But oh, did he believe in his power? And he wasn't alone. Enter Carla, the kind of neighbor who saw herself as the moral compass of the community. You could smell the passive aggression in her perfume. She introduced herself by assuming I was renting since I hadn't landscaped yet. Her yard looked like a botanical fever dream. Gnomes, roses, wind chimes, and a live laugh love sign that made my teeth hurt. Next morning, Carla was at my fence with Keith in tow. "Just so you know, we all agreed years ago that fences ruined the aesthetic," she said, gesturing like she was unveiling a Picasso. "We don't have an HOA," I said. "Well, we follow community standards. Some of us have pride." Keith nodded like he'd been elected governor. At first, I thought they were just bored. I smiled, waved, went inside. Then things escalated. Typed notes started appearing on my door. Final warning. My trash cans were knocked over. Moose wouldn't stop barking at night. Then came the cameras. One nailed to a tree, pointing into my backyard. Another duct-taped to Carla's attic window. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute. This was delusion with surveillance equipment. I documented everything. Dates, times, videos, even the wording on Keith's fake citations. My friends at the Bureau have a saying, "Don't argue with crazy. Just wait until it gets loud enough to report." 1 week later, Keith knocked again, now in a custom polo shirt with Community Patrol stitched on the chest. Walkie-talkie, pepper spray, even a key from an old parking meter. "You've ignored multiple warnings," he said, dead serious. "If this fence isn't gone in 24 hours, I'll personally remove it." I leaned against the fence and smiled. "You sure about that?" He puffed up. "Absolutely." I pulled out my badge, real, issued by the U.S. Department of the Interior. "I'm a federal land agent," I said. "What you're doing is one step away from impersonating law enforcement." Keith's Adam's apple tried to escape. Carla, watching from behind a bush, dropped her binoculars. The next morning, I found muddy boot prints by the fence. Not mine. And Moose doesn't wear shoes. One fence post was loose, just enough to fall with the next wind. Someone had sabotaged it. I stopped playing defense. I set up motion-activated trail cams. Placed markers at every post to track tampering. Even hung a giant property of U.S. government sign in the yard. That night, the cameras caught Keith creeping around with a flashlight and level, still wearing that fake badge. I laughed myself silly over toast while watching the footage. But I didn't report him yet. No, I had a better plan. Saturday at 6 p.m., a flyer showed up, community HOA meeting. Hosted by Officer Keith. He'd upgraded his title. Perfect. The meeting was in a neighbor's garage, set up like a clubhouse. Folding chairs, string lights, lemonade. Carla sat front and center. Keith stood in front of a grill like it was a podium. He launched into his speech, listing violations like he was reading from a fantasy novel. On a whiteboard, fence violator, Nathan, my name in bold caps, with an arrow pointing to a blurry photo. I stood up. Quick question. Where are the HOA's official documents filed? They're private, he said. Funny. I checked with the county clerk. No record of an HOA. That makes your citations fake. That fence? Legal. Your actions? Trespassing, property damage, impersonating an officer. I slapped a stack of printed photos on the table. Keith tampering with my fence, 2 a.m., flashlight, fake badge. The room went silent. Carla dropped her pen. Someone whistled. An older neighbor crossed his arms. So, there's no HOA. Just Keith's fantasy, I replied. Carla tried to speak. Someone asked her why she had a camera pointed at my yard. She sat down without a word. I left with my fence intact and my dignity unscathed. But it wasn't over. 2 days later, at 3 a.m., Moose went wild. I ran outside with a flashlight. 2 silhouettes sprinted away into the woods. 3 fence panels were damaged. 1 shattered, 1 smoldering. This was arson. I documented everything. Called an old friend at the bureau. Told him everything. Fake badge, trespassing, now property destruction. He said he'd get enforcement involved. Turns out Keith had priors, harassment reports, a ranger warning, even 1 buried arrest record. We set the trap. Saturday afternoon, I loudly began installing new posts. Keith took the bait. Boots crunching gravel. He marched over, waving another fake citation. You were warned, he said. I stood up. You really want to do this? He stepped over the line. Final violation. I'm removing the fence. That's when the black SUV rolled in. 2 plainclothes agents stepped out. I show my badge again. You just trespassed on federally documented land. That's impersonation, harassment, and vandalism. Keith sputtered. The agents cuffed him. Carla watched from her porch, eyes wide, hand over her mouth. You don't know who I work for, Keith muttered. Neither do you, apparently. He was driven away. For the first time in weeks, the neighborhood was silent. A few neighbors apologized. Carla vanished behind closed curtains. Then came the backyard barbecue that turned into a block party. Laughter, burgers, paper plates. Someone brought potato salad. Then, the projector I had set up rolled a special presentation, a 10-minute highlight reel of Keith's antics. Fake badges, late-night trespassing, the cuffing. Laughter echoed across the lawn. Carla quietly left with a bowl of green gelatin in hand. I caught her at the gate. You knew what he was doing. I thought he was helping, she said. It got out of hand. You encouraged him. She didn't respond. Just walked away. Life returned to normal. Fence reinforced. Moose chasing squirrels. Then I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a blurry black and white photo of Keith standing next to someone in suits. Federal-looking building in the background. You only saw part of the story, it said. My bureau friend said he'd look into it. Nothing came up, but the image sat on my desk for weeks, a reminder that even the most absurd power plays might have deeper roots. Maybe Keith wasn't just a delusional HOA wannabe. Maybe he was part of something larger. Or maybe it was just the final prank of a man who couldn't stand fences or boundaries. Either way, the fence is still standing. So am I.